The first memory that I remembered, I was on a spaceship and I was escaping, and my planet was being destroyed. We were not human. I had one particular lifetime where I was being trained as some sort of super soldier. I thought that was the highest honor for my life.
This is the way that the powers that be, the negative polarity that's operating in our world right now, keeps us enslaved and ensures that we won't be able to evolve. Today's video is of the utmost importance. I'm going to be watching back and commentating an interview that I did a couple of years ago with a woman named Valentina, who recalls a past life on a slave planet, which is very similar to what life on Earth could look like if we as a collective human species do not choose the way of love, harmony, and enlightenment. Watch to find out not only what we want to avoid, but what is possible for humanity if we choose the way of love. We could be heading into absolute paradise. Before we get into it, if you would like a free gift from me, sign up for my mailing list in the description and I will send you my free Connect to Your True Self mini course. And if you would like to go deeper with me, I offer one-on-one energy work and spiritual coaching sessions to help you connect to your divine nature and to divine love and bliss in your daily life.
So I guess I will start with the first memory that I remembered. And I was basically on a spaceship and I was escaping, and my planet was being destroyed. So I was part of a species that we lived on that planet as a collective species. We were not human. We were something that the best way I can describe it is something more related to an insect, like a kind of insectoid, but we did have a lot of human abilities.
In the abductee community, there are several races of extraterrestrials that come up over and over and over that people claim to have had experiences with. Of course, there's the grays, the big grays and the little grays, but there's also the reptilians and the insectoid type species. So it's just interesting to me that she has this past life memory as an insectoid type being. Also, I have spoken to near-death experiencers who have been given tours of the universe in their NDE and visited different planets. I've also spoken to past life regressionists who have regressed dozens and hundreds of people back to previous lifetimes as extraterrestrial species on other planets. And consistently, we see things like the water worlds, where there are mermaid type species, manatees, and other water dwelling intelligent species. And then from time to time, we do hear about these other species like insectoids or light beings. There's a wide range of extraterrestrial species that people will experience in their NDEs or in past life regressions. And it's just interesting, like as kind of a nerdy side note, I've been watching this documentary on Netflix with my boys, and obviously I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's about the evolutionary process of life on Earth. And it has really, really beautiful video and brings to life what science believes is the process of evolution with all the mass extinctions that have happened up to this point. But what's really, really interesting is there's multiple ways that evolution could have gone on this planet. It so happens that where we're at right now, mammals are more of the dominant species on this planet. But previous to some of the mass extinctions, Earth was actually a water world and aquatic life was the dominant species. Of course, during the age of the dinosaurs, reptilians were the dominant species. So really, I think that any life form that does kind of gain the dominant evolutionary path has the potential to evolve into developing higher brain functions and ultimately to expand consciousness. And so my personal belief is that this is what's happened on other planets, that other life forms have gained dominance in the evolutionary process, whether it's aquatic life, reptilian life, insectoid life, and that on this specific planet she was living on, insects were the dominant species that had evolved to the point where they developed higher brain function and were conscious in a similar way that humans are here, although there are definitely some marked differences, which she'll get into.
It's just a very different way of thinking, and also we look different. So we were being destroyed, and I remember I was on the spaceship. I was escaping my planet, and however, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have much time left because our entire species was being exterminated. And I remember that I had nothing to do, nowhere to go. I was lost. I had nothing left. And so I just sat there and I just waited and just allowed myself to reflect back on the past, on my previous choices, on my past, in the past of that life. And as I was reflecting back, I was just sitting there, just thinking about my life. Suddenly, all of these understanding about my life came to me. I was hit by a sort of like a kind of tsunami of truth, of things that I had not seen until that moment, of realizations that I had not understood until then. It all hit me during that time where I was just sitting there and just waiting for nothing because I had nowhere to go. And it was really difficult because I could see all of the things that I had done in the past. In my species, we were a very different species. We were a very collective functioning species. And for many, many lifetimes in that species where I had been incarnating, we were basically just the slaves. We were a slave species and we were basically just obeying orders of another species. So we were indoctrinated from childhood, from birth. We were put into a sort of a military system where we were being trained and brainwashed, and basically we were being enslaved. So all our life was about just serving our masters, just serving our lords. That was the entire meaning of our lives. We didn't have anything else to do. So some of us were technicians, some of us were soldiers. We had many different kinds of functions, but ultimately we were just serving our masters.
This right here is the reason why I invited Valentina onto my podcast to share her story. This information is, one, absolutely fascinating and also of paramount importance in my opinion. There is a channel text called The Law of One that really had a profound influence on my spiritual understanding, the way that I understand metaphysics and my own personal spiritual growth. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. I have talked about it from time to time in the past. In the early 1900s, there's a group that were attempting to learn to channel, specifically to contact extraterrestrials. And eventually, through some trial and error, ended up making contact with a legitimate entity, which called itself Ra and described itself as a social memory complex, or basically an archangel, a society of evolved souls who had evolved to the point where they joined minds and spoke with one voice. This entity, Ra, claimed to be from the planet Venus, the civilization that had evolved on Venus in our Earth times past, had successfully evolved out of third density or physical suffering-based consciousness into heart-based unity consciousness, had evolved to the point where they, again, were joined mind to mind and desired to help us here on Earth, to help us follow the same path that they have to reach enlightenment as a species. So they attempted to help out by contacting the Egyptians way back in the day. Their message ended up becoming corrupted. And then in the 1980s, they saw another opportunity, since humanity has evolved since ancient times, to again pass on their message, which is titled The Law of One. The Law of One basically states that there is one consciousness in the universe and we are all a part of it. I believe there's like 106 channeled sessions that they recorded and then translated these sessions into writing. It ended up becoming a 4-volume series, and it's like a master's degree on the metaphysics of the universe and how everything works. The Law of One basically explains that all things originate from the one infinite creator, the one source that is light, love, and love light expressed outward. And we are each a small fractal of consciousness of that one source. And we are on an evolutionary journey back to source, a common understanding that most mystical spiritual paths agree on. But here's where it gets interesting. The law of one explains how there are two possible paths that an entity, a consciousness, can choose to take to return back to the creator. There's the path of love and unity, of going in the flow of the nature of reality, the path of service to others. And then there's also the path of self-centeredness and fear, path of service to self. In third density consciousness, which is where we are now, in physical reality, where we experience duality, we experience contrast, good and evil, light and dark, we have a choice. We can choose the path of love, the path of service to others, or we can choose the path of fear, the path of service to self. Ultimately, both paths lead back to the creator. The path of service to others is far more harmonious and a much easier path because there's far less suffering involved. The path of service to self is far more difficult. It's fraught with suffering and turmoil and anguish. But souls who choose to walk that path will eventually learn through the contrast, through the karma that they create for themselves, what reality is not. And they will ultimately flip onto the path of service to others and be reunited with Source in the end. The text goes into a lot of detail on these two paths and how you can differentiate them and tell them apart. A very important part of the universe that we live in is that each entity has free will. We are all sovereign spiritual beings. Our power is in our presence and our ability to know our true nature, which is love, goodness, peace, divinity, and to exist within that knowledge, filling our own presence, projecting our own love and our own peace onto the world around us. So the positive polarity, the service to others polarity, functions off of principles of honoring each other's free will, of love, of service, of harmony. I'm here to serve. I'm here to love both myself and you, and I'm here in service to you. How can I assist you on your journey? Whereas the negative polarity or the service to self path functions on individual personal power, feeding my own needs and desires at the expense of others. And in order to do that, I have to hijack other people's free will. Nobody can take your free will without your consent. Nobody can take your power without your consent. And so what the negative polarity tries to do is coerce you into giving up your power. They have to get you to agree to give up your free will in return for safety, security, some kind of deal that they're offering you. This is how demonic entities work, or service to self entities work. And as we evolve into higher and higher densities of consciousness, because we won't be here forever, evolution is an ongoing thing. So just like we have evolved past the phase of the elements when the stars and the planets were forming, we've evolved past the phase of one-celled organisms being the only species on the planet, or the phase where plant life was predominant on the planet, or the phase where the aquatic life and the reptilian life were predominant on the planet. We have now evolved into third density consciousness where we have developed self-awareness. Humanity has developed self-awareness. Other animal species are developing self-awareness. Dogs and cats understand that they have a name. Some of the animals in our oceans, such as whales, dolphins, and manatees, are some of the most evolved self-aware species on the planet. The whole planet is headed towards self-awareness. The next phase beyond developing self-awareness is developing unity consciousness, the understanding that you are part of the self. My sense of self expands to include you, to include everything. This is known as heart-based or fourth density consciousness in the law of one. And it's where we grow out of psychological suffering into enlightenment, into an enlightened civilization that runs on peace and unity and love and service to others. So the text, the law of one, goes into quite a bit of detail on what higher density planets, both service to others and service to self, look like. And what's very interesting is that the way service to self, higher density planets are described in the law of one is exactly what she is stating she experienced in this past life memory. A service to self planet looks like slavery, coercion, control, manipulation. It looks like one dominant species enslaving another, forcing them to do their will, manipulating them out of their free will. We see this happening on Earth to a degree now. Of course, it's very mixed on Earth right now because we're still going through the process of making the collective choice of which way do we want to go? Do we want to go service to others or service to self? We are very much in the thick of that choice right now here on Earth. And this is why I think that her testimony, Valentina's testimony, is so incredibly important, because she's painting a picture for us of what life will look like here on Earth if we do not choose love and harmony, if we do choose fear, if we do choose to bow to corruption and give away our power in return for safety or personal advancement or whatever it may be. This is what our planet would look like.
And during that time when I was incarnating in that species for several lifetimes, I remember we were treating those masters, we were treating them as kind of gods. So we saw them as these incredible superior beings. We thought that they were much higher than us. We thought that they were much better than us. And we thought that by serving them, we were basically serving the universe. We really believed that. So we thought that the best thing we could do for our honor was to serve them. And I remember that all of my life aspiration was to serve those masters.
This is the mark of a demonic entity or a negatively polarized entity. They will convince you that they are worthy of your worship, that they are worthy of giving up your free will for, that they are here to protect you and help you, and all you have to do is give up your power to them. I just have to throw this out here. This is how organized religion often works too, and this is why I believe that some organized religion on this planet leans service to self. If you're part of a religion where the deity you're worshiping demands your worship, it is not a benevolent entity that you're worshiping. You are giving away your power to a demonic entity. Now, if it's a situation where you are freely giving of yourself, freely expressing that worship because it brings you joy to do so, and it's mutually given and received, that's a different story. That would be the service to others path, where all beings are equally in awe and in love with each other. But any entity that sets itself above you and demands your worship should send up a lot of red flags.
We were an intelligent species. We were not completely dumb. And eventually we started to figure out what was really going on. We started to understand some glitches of the truth started to come up out of the indoctrinations and brainwashing. And we started to realize that actually we were being used. I had one particular lifetime where I was being trained as some sort of super soldier, and I thought that was the highest honor for my life. But by the time that I reached that status or that level, I was still feeling so unhappy, so unsatisfied, even disgusted with my life, because ultimately all of my abilities were being used to kill, to destroy, to conquer, and so on. There was nothing satisfying about that. And so I was actually really feeling disgusted with myself, with my choices, and I couldn't understand what was the point of that. So me and many others started to have these kinds of awakenings. We started to sort of put things together and make sense of it and understand that actually we were not truly the servants of some god. We were not actually serving the good of the universe. That in fact we were being exploited as slaves by a tyrannical species.
What she's describing here is a spiritual awakening, that her species began to collectively awaken and see the truth of what was going on. It's absolutely incredible. And that's what's happening on our planet to a degree now as well.
And by the time we figured that out, we were not the way we thought. It wasn't like humans. So we were very collective in our thinking. So it was very telepathic. So when one of us understood something, the rest of us kind of got it at the same time. We were very collectively oriented. It was like humans that can hide things from each other. We couldn't really do that. Basically, by the time that most of us started to understand and put things together, we were all done. We were all rebelling. We were not going to tolerate it anymore. We were not going to serve those masters anymore. We collectively together, we decided that's it. We're done with this. We had it, and we're going to rebel. We're going to say no. It was a decision that for us, it was very logical. We were very intelligent and logical species in that sense. So it made sense for us. We didn't have a lot of obstacles in making that decision. However, what happened is that our masters, they were prepared for something like that. So they knew that we were pretty smart, and it was very difficult to keep us indoctrinated, and they had a contingency plan for something like that happening. So by the time we rebelled, they started their contingency plan and they started to exterminate. And that was the last lifetime that I remember from that entire journey. And that is where our entire planet was being destroyed.
One of the things that I asked her in this interview is how to avoid the reaction of that higher species that was enslaving them. How can you go through a spiritual awakening and revolution without the species that's trying to control you, the negative entities, reacting in this way? Because in this case, they wiped her species off the planet.
So I remember seeing thousands of us just being destroyed at once with just one explosion here, one explosion there. It was just everything was being decimated. And that's basically the first lifetime that I remember is that one where it was an Armageddon. So that was basically the most important lifetime that I remember, because it left a really, really deep mark on my soul, and everything was being destroyed and exterminated, and my entire species was being killed in a matter of a very short time. So there was nothing left. And I found a ship or something that was broken. I was supposed to be broken, and I was able to somehow escape on that ship. And I was sitting there, and I basically had lost everything. I had nothing left. Everything I had known until that moment was basically being destroyed in front of my eyes. There was nothing left for me. I had nowhere to go. And I didn't have like another planet that I could go to or anything like that. It was my entire life, my entire species, everything I had known turned out to be a lie. And so I was just sitting there reflecting on the past. And mind you that, in our lifetime, we didn't really have any time to think. We were constantly put under pressure and distracted. We were kept very busy, so that we didn't really have time to think about these sort of deeper philosophical things.
This is actually a really good point for us as humans to take note of, because this is exactly what is happening on our planet right now. In order to evolve spiritually, we have to develop self-awareness. In order to develop self-awareness, we have to have the time and space to go within, to deal with our blockages, our projections, our attachments, our judgments, to alchemize our emotions, to become aware of our thought patterns, to learn to disconnect from our thoughts, to find that place of stillness within us. And the powers that be in our world are doing a really good job of making sure that we are too busy and tired and sick and distracted enough to do that. With all the junk food and the drugs and the toxins and the screen time is a really big offender, in my opinion, and one of my biggest concerns about where humanity is headed right now. When we are addicted to screens and we can't put the screens down, when are we going to find the quiet within ourselves to do the inner work that we need to do to expand and to evolve? Not to mention the 40-hour work week, which I personally believe is a form of slavery. When you spend your entire life working, you're so busy all the time. And then people have to work 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table. They don't have time to take care of their health, to cook themselves healthy meals, to get outside under the sun, which is one of the best things that you can do for your neurological and mental health, and ultimately for your spiritual expansion as well. People don't have time to exercise. We're supposed to be active the majority of the day. We're lucky if we fit in 30 minutes. This is the way that the powers that be, the negative polarity that's operating in our world right now, keeps us enslaved and ensures that we won't be able to evolve. Because as soon as we connect with ourselves, as soon as we know ourselves, if we come into our presence, they won't be able to control us anymore.
When I was sitting on that ship, finally, I just had time for myself. I was finally completely free. I had no distractions. I wasn't busy. I didn't have anything to do. I was just basically sitting there waiting to die. And so I had literally nothing left to lose except to just allow the truth to come to me, because ultimately, like I said, we were not stupid. We were pretty smart. So if, we thought about things, we could figure things out pretty quickly. And like I said, it was the way it felt. The way I can describe it, it's almost like I decided to just surrender. I was like, okay, that's it. I lost everything. Everything I believed in, everything I worked for, everything I lived for, it's all gone. What else is there? It almost felt like I was just like asking God, just tell me, like, I don't understand. And it was almost like a tsunami of these realizations that came to me, all of the truths of first of all, the horror atrocities that I have been doing for years and years, following the orders of those masters, the reality of the destruction I had created, all of these lives I had destroyed, all of this suffering I had created, and all of the horrible actions that I had done. It just like hit me, just like a kind of like a karmic tsunami, I guess you could define it that way. It just felt the reality of it. And it was the most painful thing that I cannot even describe how painful it was to feel all of that. But at the same time, because I had literally had nothing else to lose, I was just open to it. I was just completely surrendered to it. I was like, yeah, whatever it is, I just want to see the truth. And so I just allowed all of that realization to come to me. And as all of this reality unfolded, of all the suffering I caused, all the pain I caused, all the destruction that I did in the name of those masters, at the same time, it was extremely painful, but in a way, it was also extremely healing, because for the first time in as far as I can remember, for the first time, I knew the truth. For the first time, I saw the truth, the reality of how things really were. There was no more illusion. There was no more distraction, lying, manipulation. It was just that, the truth of it. It's just the pain that I had caused. It all just was showing in front of me. And it was excruciatingly painful, but I just, like I said, I had nothing left and nothing to lose. I was going to die anyway. So I was just sitting there feeling all of that and allowing all of that to sink in, and just realizing, okay, those are the mistakes I've made. And, I really did screw up really badly. And basically I was about to die, and I was just sitting there with all those realizations, and I realized I had nothing left to recuperate, nothing left to fix. It's all gone. It's all lost. And there's nothing else that I can do. I said something just before dying. I formulated a thought. I think I even spoke it out loud. It was sort of like a telepathic message I sent out there. And I said, I understand now what I've done. I know where I went wrong. I can see all of the horrible things I have caused, and I understand now what I participated in, what I allowed, what I tolerated, what I accomplished by being part of this, and all of the mistakes I made, and all the horrible choices I made. And I understand that, and I know it's too late for me. I know there's no recuperation. There's nothing that I can do. There's no going back. And all I'm asking, second chance. That's all I said. It was literally the last thing I said before dying.
I want to stop and point this out. This is absolutely beautiful. And we are told over and over and over by near-death experiencers when they have their life reviews that this right here is the whole point. This is the whole point of that journey back to source that we were speaking about earlier. The evolutionary process of expanding consciousness, expanding awareness, coming to a realization of something that you couldn't see before. That's what it's about. It's about learning. People aren't judged for their mistakes on the other side when they have their life reviews. They're simply shown the situation, and then they gather themselves what they could have done differently. Oh, now I understand how I made that person feel when I spoke to them that way. Now I'd like to try again and do a better job this time. Except she's experiencing this on a much larger scale, of course. But it's a beautiful moment of awakening and growth for her. And really, this is what the universe, God, source wants from us, is just an evolution into understanding. There's no judgment. There's no punishment. She's not going to be sent to hell for her actions and her mistakes. The point is the realization, expanding your understanding, expanding your empathy, your awareness of how your actions impact others. So it's going to be interesting to see the results of this shift for her. Where does the universe send her next? Like, what opportunities are going to be available for her to further her growth and evolution from this point? Let's find out.
And that was it. And I don't know exactly what happened, but the next thing I knew, I was incarnating on this planet, and I was being taught by Mother Earth about harmony. About cooperation and beauty, and all these things that were so foreign to me because I have never seen this before. I know this might sound strange for people who live here, but for many lifetimes, I did not know any of this. And for me to be here and welcome in this loving, beautiful planet is so abundant, so full of love, and has so many beautiful creatures and all these plants and animals. I was just stunned. I was just in awe. And I don't remember a lot of my lifetimes here, but I do remember a few lifetimes where I was basically being taught lessons of cooperation and understanding and empathy, things like that I had no experience with. So in one lifetime, I remember being an animal. In another, I was in an Aboriginal village and all kinds of lifetimes like that, where I was basically being trained from ground zero about all of the principles of Mother Earth.
So it's interesting. She was indeed given an opportunity of what she, in her own words, considers to be this beautiful opportunity to learn love and empathy and cooperation from Mother Earth. So we see she wasn't punished for her actions, far from it. Her prayer was answered. She was given what she considers to be an incredible, beautiful opportunity to come to a planet where she could learn the lessons that she desperately wanted to learn at that point in her evolution.
It lasted for quite a while. I don't know exactly how long this training went on for. But what I do know is that when I came into this lifetime, I was basically ready. I was ready to fulfill the promise that I made, the prayer that I asked in my last lifetime in the previous species. And I was ready to finally fulfill my promise and be here to have another chance. And this time do things better. This time not allow the destruction to take place and speak up before it's, before it's too late. And so I came here now in this lifetime ready for my purpose. And that's why it's coming back all together now. All of the training I received from Mother Earth, but also the memories of why I came here, why I came to this planet, and why it is so important to me and to many others. So what I really learned by living on this planet, on Mother Earth, is just how much love, how she has for all of her children, all of her creatures, how deeply she loves all of them. She loves all of us so much. It's really incredible. I never experienced so much love before. And all of her creatures, all of her plants, all of her animals, and us humans. And what she really desires so deeply for us is that we come together with her into this vision of harmony and beauty and love and abundance that she already is envisioning. She's already carrying forward. So this is what she wants for all of us, all of her children. I'm not the only one who came here from other planets. There are many others who came here to help humanity, because humans have gotten quite lost and they needed some guidance. They needed a reminder of who they are and what an incredible privilege it is to be on this planet, how lucky we are to be here. I mean, sometimes it's just, I don't know, people realize how much just the creativity and artistry and love goes into the creation of every flower and every plant and every insect and the rivers and the oceans and all of this, the abundance we have on this planet. It's just so unprecedented, so beautiful. And so I want to remind humans how lucky we are to be here, to have an opportunity to be on this beautiful planet that loves us so much and that really, really wants us to collaborate with her to create a future of abundance. And we don't have to use our energy to hurt one another, to harm one another, to come back and to fight. We don't have to do that. It's a choice. It's a choice. We can make a choice to do that, but we can also make a choice instead to co-create the paradise that Mother Earth wants to create. She's already envisioning that. She's already envisioning this beautiful future and she wants us to participate. And I think a lot of humans have lost their understanding of how beautiful this place is, what a privilege it is to be here, and what an honor to be able to be a part of this beautiful vision that Mother Earth has to co-create this beautiful place of love. And I think we have forgotten that partly because we're given this for granted. Even though my previous lifetimes in the other planet were a really long time ago, as far as I can tell, because the memory is so alive within me, especially, that last life, it was such an incredible pain that I went through. I don't take anything here for granted. I understand how incredibly lucky I am to be here, because even the worst day in my life here, and I had really, really horrific days on this life, even the worst day of my life here is still a paradise compared to where I came from. It is still amazingly so much better compared to where I was before. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, how even in the worst time, we still are receiving the air. We're still receiving water. We're still receiving food. There's still love coming from this planet all the time. And it's just never ending. It's so unconditional. And she's always there for us. If we get lost, if we get sick, she's there to heal us. She's there to help. And so, yeah, basically that's in a nutshell my message.
I think that her perspective on the Earth being such a beautiful planet is so refreshing, because I hear from people all day, every day who say things like, I'm never coming back to this trash hole again. This place is hell. I'm getting out of here and I'm never reincarnating. And while I deeply, deeply understand, because the level of suffering that it is possible to experience here can be horrific. And there are people who have experienced suffering that I have not. In many ways, my life is privileged, and I think it's important for me to call that out. Having said that, my experience of this planet is that it is not hell. This planet is actually heaven. This planet is an absolutely divine paradise of a place to live. Mother Earth and the mountains and the oceans and the starry skies, the love and the joy and the pure, rich experience that it is possible to have on this planet. It is absolute heaven. It is a heaven planet. It is a paradise planet. We make it hell because we project our internal psychological suffering. So many of us are suffering on the inside, and we express that through our actions. How many millions of unloving, cruel actions are performed every day? That adds up. That turns into collective karma that hangs over this planet and results in darkness and suffering that people experience. And so we can't see through that to be able to see the truth of the fact that we're living in paradise. And what we as humans need to do is each and every one of us needs to choose love. When we start choosing love in our internal landscape and our external actions, this planet will be transformed. The karma will resolve, the fog will lift, and we'll be able to clearly see and experience the heaven that we're actually living in. And I want to encourage every single person that's watching to make that choice today. Make the commitment that every action is going to be loving. It's going to be the best, most loving action possible for each scenario that arises. That every thought is loving. Make a commitment to evolving into your own self-love and your own presence. When you love yourself, you can love others. When you're strong in your presence, you can project that presence and offer that presence to others. If we want to experience a service to others planet, if we want to evolve into enlightenment, if we want to experience the paradise that Earth actually is, these are the choices that we have to make. The small choices that we each individually make day to day add up into Earth's collective karma balance, and we can choose to change that overnight. The other option is to continue making cruel, unloving, and selfish actions, hating ourselves, despising ourselves, treating others poorly, and then we'll end up following the path that will lead us to a slave planet like what Valentina described from her past life memory. So the choice is ours. This is where I'm going to end the video for today. I will link the full interview in the description. I go on to ask Valentina a number of questions, including how to wake up as a species and take a stand against evil powers without having them retaliate. like they did on her slave planet, the amazing creative potential of humans living on Earth, some of the things we're doing right now that are leading us down the path towards enslavement, what it would take for humanity right now to make the switch from a mixed planet, possibly heading towards service to self, into a service to others, enlightened society. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to go deeper with me, I do offer one-on-one energy work and spiritual coaching sessions where I help people to connect with divine love, to connect with their divine nature. You'll find the link to work with me in the description. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, we have a few fun ways that you can do that. I do have a merch store linked in the description. We've put some of the phrases on t-shirts that you guys requested. I have affiliate links to my favorite blue blockers, my favorite red light panel, and a couple of other companies that I work with. You can join my membership at the Sanctuary. You can sign up for an energy healing. I also offer a 4-session energy healing package. You'll find all these links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Now go live your most extravagantly loving life.